super excited to have one of our favorite guests back on the channel today. It is Dr. Nguyen Phan. And Dr. Phan, welcome. How have you been doing?
Oh, stressed as heck because of the storm lately, but it's good to be here.
So, did you get all electrical power and internet
Got the
restored?
power back. The only thing that flooded was my pants, so it was good. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was definitely a big deal. I'm glad that it's all restored now. So we have some awesome Q&A happening. The people posted their questions. I'm excited to read them to you and get some insight here going for people. Hopefully, we'll get people coming on soon. So I hope it's streaming properly. I'm trying to check and make sure because we actually ran. The reason we're running a bit late today, in full transparency, is that my YouTube channel was having a tech glitch, and hopefully it's back up and running right now, and that it is showing people that we are live, which is true. It is. So that's super exciting. All right, so things are working. Happy to hear that. All righty, let's get into it today. So, how many of you are here watching? Jump into the chat box. Uh, say hello. Julie Wentz says hello. I'm new to you both. Julie, welcome. Happy to have you join us here. Um, and we are, Dr. Phan is a medical doctor. He's a doctor of internal medicine. Um, he's also known as MD with Spirit. I am a medical intuitive and I work with holistic health, medical medium information, foods and supplements to help people heal from chronic and autoimmune conditions. And Dr. Phan is, I like to call him a partner in crime, right? So
Yes.
we kind of work together with some of our clients and able to bring in the medical side and the natural side. And I feel like what one of my favorite things to do is to build bridges between these two worlds because I think there's a lot of good and truth in each of these worlds, and that we should be able to bring more of these truths together and to work in a way that's collaborative, that's supportive to the patient, supportive to the client and the patient. They are the most important person in this whole scenario because they're the ones who are suffering and they need our help and support. And many people are lost and confused, and hopefully our goal is to help in the small ways that we can to guide people um, out of their suffering and into good health and living their lives. So, Dr. Phan, let's kick it off. We have a great question from Nina here today. She says, "What is the best way to reverse osteoporosis?"
So before we start, remember you always need to consult with your own doctor. We're going to be working from the medical medium perspective as far as what we can do, right? Um, so in terms of this, and I thought it'd be nice if we just sang our answers this time around. No, I'm joking. I'm totally joking. No, we're not going to do that. You don't want that
Dr. Phan,
oral trauma.
have you watched his carnivore parody? Like, who watched that? It was kind of funny. But he was singing in that one, so that was kind of cool. Um, so, osteoporosis. What can we do for osteoporosis? What does medical medium say is the root cause?
So let's step back a little bit and think about osteoporosis. A lot of people think, well, I'll just add calcium and vitamin D and we should be good, right? But again, if we live in America where we're at, we have a large intake of dairy in vitamin D, and we still have a lot of people with osteoporosis. We look at osteoporosis, the cause is of an acidic environment in the body. You can't just offset that with, I'll just take more alkaline stuff. Yes, you do want alkaline diet, food-wise, but it's because the body is so acidic that the body's going to try to counterbalance that by taking calcium and minerals from bones and teeth and other things to offset that acidity. So to reverse it, it takes time. It takes time to get osteoporosis. Remember, it starts when you're young, and then you get to a certain point where the bone density is such that they classify you as having osteoporosis, and preceded by osteopenia, which is a weakening. And most people will develop osteopenia as they get older. The current treatment, conventional medicine, is to use things like bisphosphonates, which are injectable drug or oral drugs, sometimes injectable, to rebuild the bone for a denser bone. but the bone isn't always the best quality. So you'll have a denser bone, but it's a different type of quality, and that leads to different types of fractures that typically you don't see. That's why they call it atypical fractures, and some other risk factors for the medication. So from our standpoint, from the naturalistic standpoint, we say, look, get on a kind of a whole foods alkaline diet, incorporating many more plants. If you have not done that, bring in the living silica, the plant-based living silica that Anthony William has on his website. MSM is really good. Nettle, even oat straw, horsetail, these different things to bring in the kind of minerals that we're missing. And it'll take time to reverse, right? And I think they recommend every 2 years a bone density, you know, scan, DEXA scan, basically to see the progress. So you don't think in 1 year it's going to change overnight.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just letting people know on Instagram.
So basically, more alkalinity via fruit and foods and supplements, minerals. Not, I'm going to drink alkaline water and it's going to reverse that. It's not going to happen. You don't want to do alkaline water. Waste of money, as well as your body's going to readjust that alkalinity to a neutral before it absorbs it in your body. Just like if you take acidic stuff like Coke, it's going to neutralize it before it allows your body to take it in, for instance.
Lots of MSM and aloe also help with osteoporosis, but osteoporosis is like, what is going to bring all the minerals back into your bones? It's going to be coming from fruits and greens, lots and lots of greens, from trace mineral salts, spinach soup, arugula, lettuce, the brain,
and a daily citrus fruit, because daily citrus has bioavailable calcium. Mm-hmm. So these, and Anthony said, like these trees that are citrus trees, they take the calcium from the ground, the roots up, and bring it into fruit. So we don't typically think of oranges and such having a lot of high calcium, but it's bioavailable calcium.
Yeah. So I hope, Nina, that answers your question, and that you are, are you dealing with osteoporosis yourself or for somebody else? As we get older, I think it can come up for some of us, it can be an issue. So, all right. So we have a bunch of questions that were posted on our, my Instagram channel. So I'll start with those. So Sarah Montemayor asks, what are your thoughts on tattoo removals? Are they safe, not safe, worth doing or not?
So Anthony has talked about this. He does not recommend that, because even though you may take the color out of it, the metals are kind of there already. And there's a big, if you need to do it for cosmetic reasons, maybe, but you still really want to daily take that heavy metal detox smoothie and other, maybe even heavy metal detox cleanse to pull the metals out, because even if you make it nice, it's not going to get all that metal out in that way, basically.
So yeah, basically, Sarah, medical medium doesn't recommend removing the tattoos, because especially if you've had them for a while, like I don't think people who got themselves tattooed yesterday are going to be wanting a removal. Maybe people who got tattooed 10 years ago want to now consider a removal given their health. And so by the time 10 years goes by or 5 years goes by, a good chunk of that metal that's in the ink has already been absorbed by your body. So it's not worth going through all the difficulty and pain of doing all that. So yeah, right. That's what we say. So our next question here is from Julie. And Julie asks, thank you for your welcome. Really struggling with depression and health issues, lost a lot of loved ones, and I feel like the best is over.
Difficult. I'm sorry for your losses, Julie. It's complicated into this. It's part of natural grieving to really feel, loss, because these people were close to you or you care for them deeply. So really, you do want to make sure your blood sugars are stabilized, you're eating well, that your adrenals are really helped out, and then start bringing the heavy metal detox smoothie in to bring up the metals, because yes, there are traumatic events, but on top of that, there's typically underlying metals, which we all have, and we've absorbed metals throughout our lives, and it's been passed down homeopathically from our parents. And so we really want to pull the metals out, get the blood sugar stabilized, help your adrenals out. And you can read more in the books and even on some of his podcasts about depression and such like this. But there's definitely traumatic events. These exacerbate things. But you also want to help it by bringing in the heavy metal detox smoothie. Consider some of these other supplements that he has in his books, depression protocols and whatnot.
Yeah, so with depression, one of the most beautiful things that Anthony has said in the Brain Saver books is that depression it comes from being really soul sensitive. So that soul sensitivity can be hard for people when you have toxic heavy metals or viruses or extreme adrenal uh, dysfunction or tapping out of the adrenals, going through extreme trauma that can cause depression to happen because it burns out, literally burns out all the cells in the brain. And to restore those, there's a whole understanding. It's 2 books in Brain Saver to understand what the brain is made of, what restores the brain. So bringing in the heavy metal detox smoothie, bringing in the advanced heavy metal detox smoothie if you need it, bringing in orange juice, which is so helpful for depression. There's a brain shot written about, which are juice therapies, really small, like shot level of therapies that you can use. And one of them is called Mood Shifter. It's really helpful for people with depression. Other things that you can do is that you have to bring more nutrients into the brain, make the brain stronger as an organ. So bringing in B12, 5-MTHF, bringing in B complex, EPA, DHA, celery force, which is a supplement by Vimergy, really great brain supplement. Propolis is really helpful for brain inflammation. Melatonin is really helpful for brain inflammation, um, you know, bringing in the right hormonal balance back to the brain for so many reasons. It's a great supplement to use to restore your brain, amongst others like GABA or 5-HTP. And there's a whole range of different supplements you could use to restore nutrients to the brain. And then, of course, what foods does the brain need? The brain really needs glucose and trace mineral salts. Those are its two biggest needs. So our brain is supposed to have reserves of glucose in it. But often, when we're dealing with any type of brain issue like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or depression or anxiety or OCD, any of those and more, our brain's already low in glucose. So we need to replenish glucose rather than consume fats, which aren't as helpful. Um, because a lot of the theories now that you hear are saying that you should eat fat, eat fat, eat fat for the brain, but actually the brain cannot function on high fat. Just like the liver can become fatty because of too much fat, the brain can become fatty too. So getting the right balance of nutrients and things, and it's not an easy thing to figure out, right, Dr. Phan? I mean, this is why we help people, because trying to figure it out on your own, some people can do it, but for some it's not easy.
Yeah, and definitely working with a practitioner who is medical medium based is our bias. That would be helpful if you can find somebody that you feel good about. And always keeping a light heart is very important. Keeping your mind off things. If it's puzzles, if it's going walking nature, if it's calling on the angels, if it's doing the guided meditations, there are a lot of things you can do. It's just a matter of motivating yourself to do that. A lot of times when we're about to lose somebody, we stop eating because we're so stressed out and we don't nourish our brains with the glucose. Remember, breast milk, very sweet. There's a reason why, because we have to nourish our brains and such. And thank you, Lisa. I can't type into the comments. Thank you, Lisa, about the tattoos removal. Yes, it can release more metals into the bloodstream when you're just breaking them apart. And so that's one of the reasons why I don't want to do that. Save some money.
Tasha is popping in to say these two are so helpful. Thank you, Tasha, for your sweet comment. Um,
We're $5 now. Okay, let me know. Keep tab. We got to keep tab here.
right.
Tasha,
All right. So our next question is from Liz Maslin. This one's for you, Dr. Phan. Can you please comment on what causes a TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone, of 8.45 when the free T3, the free T4 are in normal limits and ranges, and the thyroglobulin antibodies are not elevated, And thyroid peroxidase is not elevated. And you might have to actually, Dr. Phan, before you dive into what these are, like the answer, could you explain to those who might not know what this is and why it matters?
Let me Google that real quick. I'm joking. TSH is the thyroid stimulating hormone, and traditionally is thought of as the kind of the gold standard for testing of the thyroid. A lot of doctors only test the TSH, which I think is inadequate. Anthony talks about using thyroid stimulating hormone, which is a signal from the brain to the thyroid to produce more. It's kind of like the produce manager doesn't see mangoes on the shelves and says, "Hey, mango guy, send me some more mangoes." Right? When the brain typically does not see enough thyroid hormone, it will call the thyroid to produce more. So that's why it's called the thyroid stimulating hormone. A high number means actually that it's trying to signal call more. A low number says, "Ah, I'm good, I don't need to call you." Okay. Free T3 is the free thyroid, a free thyroid hormone, the more active actually thyroid that hormone. It's trying to. And the free T4 is another thyroid hormone. It's not as potent as free T3. So there's tyrosine with 3 iodine molecules and tyrosine with 4 iodine molecules. Okay, so she's asking why is the TSH high, meaning the brain is signaling you to get more thyroid, yet the free levels are not abnormal. And I don't know what the exact number is, so I can't comment. There's also thyroid globulin antibodies and thyroid peroxidase antibodies. These are indicators of thyroiditis, typically Hashimoto's or inflammation of the thyroid or autoimmune thyroid disorder. Okay, so TSH signaling a signal for the body to produce more, and a high number typically means you're hypo or low thyroid. And then free levels of T3 and T4 are thyroid hormones, and then antibodies are just markers of inflammation, autoimmune, quote unquote, autoimmune thyroid disease. Okay, so why would they be off? If you have been doing thyroid long enough, you'll notice like these numbers don't always correlate. So you would expect with a high TSH, you'd have a low free level of thyroid hormones because there's not enough circulating system. So you cannot. It's very difficult to always correlate this test because in a ideal world, this would cause this, and the numbers would change, and I hardly see that. Okay, so elevated TSH or a low thyroid level or even hyperthyroid, there's always underlying viral issue going on. Okay, and whatever day you take your test, 1 week later, 3 days later, it could change. It could be totally different. You'd have to check your blood work every single day for 30 days in a row to kind of get some semblance of a pattern or something like this. So you look at the TSH. Well, it says I'm very low. TSH being high means I'm low thyroid. Yet the free levels are normal, and that could be because of binding proteins, things like this. And so you won't see the free levels out there. Okay, right. So it just means it looks like you're hypothyroid, but your numbers are normal. If the real thing to listen to, right, are your symptoms. Are you having issues? Most conventional doctors say low thyroid symptoms are you look like a troll, you're dry hair, dry skin, you have losing hair, you're having weight gain, you're sluggish, fatigued. Medical meeting says the main things are maybe a little cold, maybe a little fatigue, but those are the main things, right? Maybe weight gain, maybe, but not because if I had a dime for every lady person who came in asking about thyroid because I'm gaining weight, and I crank that thyroid up, medication up, they don't lose weight. Okay, so why is that? Because the body fluctuates, protein binding, things like this. You're never gonna always get these perfect kind of relationships, feedback mechanisms of thyroid hormone and TSH. Does that make sense? It's kind of complicated.
I think you explained it pretty well. And so, Liz, let me know if this makes sense to you, if the explanation was clear. I think that the numbers, I had one client one time, Dr. Phan, who had an elevated TSH every single, like she must have done blood work twice a year for maybe 3 or 4 years, and every time it was elevated. And she said, well, I don't understand, like break down this pattern for me. Why is it elevated? It could be any number of reasons, right? It could be, I don't know if the production of adrenaline right before a blood test elevates that particular hormone, for example. Like, I don't know whether you going to use the bathroom right before you have a blood test would affect the number. So as long as, and her symptoms were improving, she just couldn't understand why that number was consistently high.
And well, I think you have to understand that that means there's a viral issue going on.
Yes.
The virus is in your thyroid, and the body is somehow not recognizing the feedback as well. I have people with high free levels of free T4, free T3, and they have normal, TSH, or they have even high. So it's like sometimes you don't understand why, and it's difficult. You get mad, kind of thinking, why is it not this way? But really address the Epstein-Barr virus.
Right. I think that's a great way to go. Next question is from Mahitab Debussy. Mahitab, nice to see you here. It's been a while since I've seen you. Um, I'm dealing with gut issues and histamine intolerance. I think that's a good one to be able to explain to people, like, what is histamine intolerance?
Okay, so basically, and you correct me as I go on this one. Histamine intolerance is basically a lot of pathogens in the liver, right? And whether you're doing the right thing, eating the right foods or not, sometimes you release histamines, right? You may be killing off things with either your supplements or starving these pathogens, whether it's Epstein-Barr or it's strep, and they're dying and they're releasing stuff. So you're like, I can't win for losing. I'll eat this and I'll have a reaction, or I won't eat this and I'll have a reaction. And so it really confuses you. And so you run to this, whatever, YouTube or online influencers talking about, I can deal with MAS and histamine intolerance, and you have to not eat this and that. And then you're like, whoa, this person must know what he's talking about, because they're using this scientific evidence or these scientific blurbs to kind of back their information. Listen to what Anthony says. He has a whole, I think, was there a podcast on there? I think there was, right?
There was a podcast on sensitivities
Yeah.
and chemical sensitivities, food sensitivities. I think there were two different ones. So that might be helpful. I think histamine intolerance can come into the category of, like food sensitivity or intolerance. Um, but yeah, I think histamine intolerance and even food and chemical sensitivities, when you look at them and break them down, they occur because there is a burden and sluggishness in the liver. And there's actually a whole chapter on food and chemical sensitivities in the Liver Rescue book. So, Mahitab, I know you have that book. So maybe go open that chapter and go read it. For people with histamine issues, obviously avoid the foods that are causing you to have a response or a reaction. I also think it matters to check whether the reaction is mild, tolerable, or just making you completely non-functional. So if
Yeah.
it's making you non-functional, it's a really intense reaction, and you're breaking out in hives or very uncomfortable, itching for hours, I wouldn't touch that food. But some people will eat a food and it's like, you know, 30 minutes of slight stomach ache, or maybe just slight itchiness on the skin, and they can quite well tolerate that. If you want, those are foods you can still include, especially if they're healing foods. You can choose to include them because it's not such a terrible reaction. And the problem with histamines and the theory of histamines is that it gives doctors a reason to just give you a list of foods to avoid. And many of those foods could be healing foods, and you could be missing out on your healing because you're avoiding those foods. So it's always best to not believe somebody else when they tell you that this food is a histamine producing food or what have you, and test it on your own body first. Some people, many people I know who have histamine intolerances, get this list from their doctor and they take the foods and test them out. And sometimes they just stop eating them. And I tell them, I'm like, well, why don't you test out eating an apple or berries or peaches? And they'll test it. And usually with one or two or maybe more, they find that they're actually okay. And it gives them the confidence to, work that list a bit more differently. Now, if you know you have a reaction and it's intense and you don't like how you feel when you get that reaction, definitely don't touch that food. And keep working on your liver. People with gut issues, histamine stuff, gut stuff, celery juice, celery juice, celery juice. If you react to celery juice, do cucumber juice. Um, and if you react to both of those, I've yet to meet a person who reacts to cucumber juice. So it's a very gentle juice and designed for people with sensitivities. I think God made it for people with sensitivities. And you can do less of foods that have more reaction. So, usually a teaspoon of something most people can get away with. And then if you increase it to like 2 teaspoons or 3 teaspoons or 1 or 2, 3 ounces and go up from there, usually you build a way of dealing with the food and your body dealing with the food that you can handle. It's a great way to approach it. So I hope that helps to give you some insight and guidance. What do you think, Dr. Fan? Is that your approach as well?
Yeah, but not a teaspoon of cocaine. It's probably not a good idea.
Yeah,
Uh,
I wouldn't
so,
do that.
but here's the thing. Yeah, cleanse the liver, and it's very confusing because you're like, why am I still having these different things? And you'll like ask, you'll Anthony will write about it, you'll have read it, and then you keep on asking the same thing again because like I want some kind of like extra guidance or extra something, special knowledge. It's the same basics, right? You got to read it again and realize that a lot of these allergy tests suck. They're horrible. I mean, like you're allergic to like pine nuts. I don't eat pine nuts. How am I allergic to that? And
Yeah,
you really don't have a problem with it. Or you're allergic to celery. I drink celery every single day. How am I allergic to celery? These tests are really not very good. But they'll market them as like highly accurate and $500 or whatever it is, expensive. And you think that because it's expensive, it's got value, and really it doesn't.
yeah, that's ain't that the truth? You got to listen to your own body. Your own symptoms always matter more. So, question from the submitted questions. So we've answered a lot here. I'm gonna jump over here for a moment. DKMD03 says UTI already did 2 rounds of Golden Seal Propolis, time T shock therapy. What do I do?
Okay, so 2 rounds. You've done the 6 dropper fulls every 4 hours, things like this. You've done the D-Manos. Maybe you need to,
Well, D-Manos. Yeah, she didn't mention D-Manos, and she didn't mention cranberry, which I would highly recommend for a UTI. Also, juicing asparagus. Asparagus has a special affinity for the kidneys. And, in our practitioner group, Dr. Fan, there's somebody who is dealing with a kidney issue or a bladder issue and UTIs, and we recommended to her to juice a bunch of asparagus a day for like 30 days. She said all her bladder issues went away with that. So I would recommend that. And then nettle leaf is very helpful for the bladder too.
Yeah, and there's times when you do need to go see a doctor and get some antibiotics, but try vitamins. Because what happens is you end up developing more antibiotic resistance, right? Potential side effects of reactions to the antibiotics like sulfa and all the good stuff. So yeah, if you can do that, add more there. Give that a try.
Tasha says $10, Dr. Fan, not five.
Yeah, inflation. Come on, man.
All right. All right. Next up, we have a question. Another question from what was submitted. Mild stroke, macular degeneration, and diabetes. How do I help this person?
Well, is the person willing to do medical meat himself? Because this is stuff. Macular degeneration is long stuff in the making, right? Toxins and pesticides and stuff like this. Diabetes, is the person off animal products or fats at least? I mean, will they choose? If they're like no, then you had to pick and choose your battles, right? What else was it? Diabetes, macular degeneration. What else?
And stroke.
Stroke. And the blood is thick, and that's another reason. If you've had a stroke, you really want to get off animal products and fats in general. But is that person going to do that?
But I mean, if you had diabetes and stroke, you got a lot of animal products going on in there, right?
Yeah, you got years of stuff.
Yeah, how do you convince someone like that who's so far gone that them eating high levels of animal protein every day are actually the root of these issues? How do you convince them? How do you support them? How do you get through? So Jenny, that would be your work to try and I think that diet connection is probably the most important one you're going to make for them.
And there are multiple movies that kind of, obviously they call it vegan propaganda, but it's a different perspective. Not necessarily they have, just to kind of get their differences and people saying other things, because for so long we've been trained to believe that protein is important, right? Okay, yeah, we do protein, right? I'm going to replace all your animal protein with plant protein. So you see the exact same amount. We'll measure it out and to see how they do, right? People love that fat. It's not just protein that they're looking for the fat, the taste of the fat, because it just pushes that adrenaline. You get hooked on adrenaline with that fat.
Yeah, exactly. Another question is from Melly Catanese. Her daughter broke her leg, and she's saying, what food and supplements help to heal a broken bone? And her daughter is 2.5 years old.
Oh, poor baby.
Yeah.
Similarly to osteoporosis, things that nourish the bone, you want to bring in that silica and MSM and nettle and stuff like that. And there are also Muneeza knows more about these homeopathic remedies that you can bring in that can help with mending the bone and stuff like that. So I have to lean on you, Muneeza, for that stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, homeopathy, you can use Symphytum. It's homeopathic, Symphytum, Symphytum. Um, really helpful for broken bones. Um, and and I think that sorry, I'm responding to questions and letting people know that we're answering their questions. Um, I think that with broken bones, you want to bring in nettle, you want to bring in MSM, but very small quantities for a little one.
Yeah.
Give her nettle tea if you can, give her a little aloe, give her a little silica, and I think that's just about all you can do for someone so little. So our next question is, what causes drooping eyelids that sag down over the eyes, and can they be reversed? And if so, how?
So these drooping eyelids, eye doctors tend to call it, tell them you need a blepharoplasty, meaning like a surgery, basically, right? And so, what is the liver like? What's the health like in general? Because these sagging eyelids probably a result of long-term issues in the liver that, I mean, yeah, is it going to be fixed fast? No. Or surgery is quicker and faster, and you can see better because if it's drooping so much that you can't see, it's affecting vision, get the surgery done.
Yes.
But it's going to be long-term. It's going to be look in the past. It's kind of like a time capsule. Instead of the teeth, it's the eyelids. But what has happened to this tissue that's it's kind of flabby and not toned that it has caused that issue? Um, that's kind of the quick and dirty answer, I would say.
I think the other piece that we want to address is it can be viral. Sometimes when it's one side versus the other, like a Bell's palsy droop, which can be the eye as well. That's shingles, but is it both? Or is it one side? Like, you have to let me know if it's that. But other than that, even if it's not shingles, I mean, could shingles affect both eyes? It could. If you got two different kinds of shingles or what have you, technically it could. But if it's not shingles and it's drooping over the eyes and there's no other droop on the face, I would say it's a loss of collagen over time, and you've probably got some other viral issue going on in the eye too that would need to be addressed. To be more specific, I think we'd both have to see you in a consult to know, but I think that would be a place to kind of start. Anyway, hope that was helpful. All right, our next question is from our chat here. We have a question from Autumn Lindsay. She says, I have fluid in my Morrison pouch. I'm supposed to get a CAT scan done, but I really want to avoid that. By the end of the day, my legs and stomach are extremely swollen. I cannot even do the 369.
We can't do the 369 because of the
Yeah, I don't
swelling.
know if it's a stomach or Autumn. Are you on the call right now?
This is no, go step back a little. Morrison pouch is, I guess, the space behind the liver and the right kidney. There's fluid in there by CAT scan, I guess. And
Right.
so the question is, what causes that? Don't know, right? Viral typically, because there's only one. Why isn't it in the whole area? Why is it just not one? Then you have to think it's a viral issue.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
it's for sure viral.
Yeah. So you also have to consider that the liver is probably sluggish by now, right? You have a sluggish liver, and you want to cleanse that liver out. So if you can't do the 369 because I guess it's too hard, I'm not exactly sure. The swelling is related to lymphatic drainage, and are you doing dry brushing? Are you rebounding? If you can't do that, maybe are you doing red clover tea? These are some things that help move things out slowly. But again, do as clean as you can. You have to go slow. This I'm assuming has happened. Is it time frame was? I don't know what the time frame is. But you have to address the underlying viral issue and the liver sluggishness.
Right. I agree with that. And also, if you've got fluid collecting, you have to understand what's producing the fluid, right? Where is it coming from? Often, when fluid collects in a part of the body, that's because there's either the body needs to dilute any poisons that are sitting there, or it's an inflammatory response to bring in the immune system and call in extra help. So it's definitely something going on there. And you're saying that your legs and stomach become really swollen. I would, if you cannot do a 369, you can still help a lot, even if you cannot do a 369. Like you could do um, tools from the 369. You could do um, red apples. You could do spinach soup. You could do the morning cleanse and then eat potatoes in the evening. Um, she's saying that I'm only 100 pounds and very petite. The fluid comes and goes away in the morning, and then comes back the rest of the day. I have done 369 cleanses in the past, but I can only eat one meal a day. So technically, if you're only eating one meal a day, then that's not really a 369 cleanse, right? You're doing whatever you can do to manage, but it's not technically the cleanse, which is okay because you're doing the best that you can to manage. Um, you might want to consider doing a mono cleanse, which can make life a little lighter and easier in the gut and the stomach area. So
Yeah.
maybe you want to approach it that way and consider a really, really simple diet that's also giving you as many nutrients as is possible for you to get. So I hope that that helps in some way. But I really wish you.
When you do any cleanse and you're not getting enough calories, you might be running your adrenals, and this is why it doesn't do what it needs to do, because you have to eat. I mean, you really have to get enough calories for your body, or and get your blood sugar stabilized. Because if you're running your adrenals because the glucose is going like this up and down, it's not helpful. This is the key to many people who come up with questions from medical meeting approach, like I'm doing this for whatever 4 years, but and I'm not getting the benefits. Well, your adrenals are running somehow. Either it's external sources triggering your adrenals, relationships, family, or you're not eating enough to get calories, or you're not eating frequently enough to get the glucose stabilized.
She says she's been doing a lot of aloe and parsley shots. Are those helping, Autumn? Let us know.
Yeah.
Let us know. All right. Our next question is from someone who says they want to keep their Insta handle anonymous. So they're asking, how do I heal teeth, neck, and root cavities after 2 months on celery force, GABA, and magnesium glycinate? I have developmental expressive language disorder, and heart palpitations, and 3 valve insufficiency diagnoses. Also, trembling from head to toe because of adrenaline sensitivity. Big question. Do you want to tackle one at a time here?
Okay, so teeth, right?
Yeah.
Is the question. Again, teeth are time capsules. This has been going on for a while now. There's ammonia permeability, perhaps, that is eating away at the teeth. There's a acidic environment that's eating away at the teeth again. So are you doing celery juice? You're doing celery force. She said celery juice. Are you swishing it 8 to 9 times a day? If you can do that, I don't know. You really got to alkalinize the body using the supplements and the foods. And then there is a developmental, you said expressive issue, which is metals that are gunking up the signaling, the circuit board for you to send a signal to talk or motor planning or whatever it is. There's metals in there, and of course, usually there's also viral load on top of that, right? So we talked about what teeth, expressive disorder, and what else?
And so the cavities, 3 valve insufficiency diagnoses.
3 valve. So the valve stuff is either viral or heavy metals, typically, right? I don't know if you're born with it. If you were born with it, then you would think about kind of heavy metals. But viruses can do that too. Cause valve issues.
So, yeah, I mean, valve issues, aren't they? The number one bug that causes that is HHV6, right? So human herpes virus 6 can be related to why you have, I mean, I don't know whether you have valve insufficiency diagnoses for three different valves, or you have three diagnoses for the same valve. I don't know, but if there's three different valves, that means your heart is under a lot of attack, right? There's a lot that you have to do to support your heart. And then you said that you're having developmental expressive language disorder healing suggestions for an adult. Well, it's toxic heavy metals that cause that. So you have to get on the heavy metal detox smoothie, or the heavy metal cleanse that is outlined in the Brain Saver books. So I hope that that helps you. And then, and at least start there. You know, these are just places to start. And then trembling from head to toe because of adrenaline sensitivity. Dr. Phan, what do you think about that?
Tremors, again, heavy metals can do that, right? Your adrenaline can also do that, obviously. But adrenaline, if you're allergic to your adrenaline, your own adrenaline, because I don't know what your history is, but it can cause these issues and stuff. Weight-wise, I don't know if she mentioned weight or not, but I'm concerned about
weight. No.
Sorry, she didn't mention weight. Okay.
Didn't mention weight. No.
I'm concerned about heavy metals, and I'm concerned about the adrenaline issues, basically. And if we can knock down the adrenal surges, that's very important, and anybody should be doing that.
Right, right. Okay, that's a good one. Lots of big questions in there. Another question is from Cindy, and she says, in your opinion, which is harder on the body, chemotherapy or radiation? My daughter, who has had a mastectomy and does is considering doing radiation or chemo, but not both.
That's kind of a difficult question because what is your body like? Do you have more viral load? Do you have more toxic metals? So it's hard to say. The radiation has potential for scarring the tissue, right? Because they have to shoot radiation to mastectomy, so you can get tissue that's damaged and stuff like this, because that's what it's supposed to do. Whereas the chemo, you don't see it as fast. You can have chemo effects years from there. But again, what other things are going on? It's hard to say. I mean, I couldn't tell you. I don't have a crystal ball. Like, hey, your viruses are really loving that that chemo, or your body is hating that radiation because you're having skin that changes from the radiation and stuff.
Yeah, I've thought about that question a lot too. And I just feel like maybe just by a little bit, radiation's worse. Only because it doesn't, radiation reduces by half-life, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of has the longevity that maybe chemo has less of. I mean, both are terrible, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But
I can see what you're saying, because chemo, at least you have the tools, the medical immune tools, to kind of counteract them in a time frame, because they don't always work like all at once. Whereas the radiation is like boom, right into your system, and how much
it goes through everything all at once. It hits you hard, and even though they radiate the breast, it's going to every other organ, and it's going into the people around you, your furniture, your loved ones that you hug. You're gonna, if they've just been radiated, then that radiation's in everybody else. And if this daughter of yours has a child or is around children, then that's not safe for children, I think.
And you've had radiation from CAT scan or whatever, mammograms and CAT scans and other scans and stuff too. So that's chemotherapy.
I mean, I do think that the medical medium tools really are helpful for reducing radiation overall. But just if I had to compare them, I feel like the radiation's a little bit.
That's a good point, yeah.
A little bit worse, in my opinion. That's just from years of watching people go through it and seeing what repercussions it had in their bodies. And I've helped people remove chemo, cleanse chemo from their bodies, and I've seen a lot of success with it. They've been able to, a lot of clients, as Dr. Phan, as well, who are dealing with cancer, going for their traditional treatments and doing medical medium at the same time, find that they're able to mitigate the impact of chemo side effects because they're doing medical medium support, and there's a level of protection that affords you, I think. So it's just that this is what I've seen. but I don't know. I just feel like radiation is one of those things. I really don't like any form of radiation. I think it's just radiation is a little scary to me.
It's hard to control, right? It's really hard
It's
to
hard
know.
to control. Yeah, that's the thing. It's harder to control. So I hope that that's a helpful answer, Cindy. I don't know if it's going to help you. Our next question is from Monica, who says, I've been bedridden with a virus infection. I'm astonished as I thought I was living by the book with MM. Is my immune system weak because I am cleansing too much? That's her question.
Oh, I see.
It's a good one for us to answer.
That's a good question. Actually, yes, because many of our devoted medical meeting followers, practitioners, even high level, you want to call them highly experienced or veterans, we're still susceptible. And it really, it comes down to adrenals and stuff like this. If your immune system, I mean, are you still having a cycle, things like this? You can do things perfectly, but if you have exposure to an engineered pathogen, it's meant to overcome all these protective things that you've been doing. Not to mention, again, if you have an adrenal stressor going on, you got a crazy boyfriend or stupid husband who sings on YouTube crazy parodies and just stresses you out, then that can really put a burden on your immune system, and so you're not doing anything wrong, but you are more susceptible because of whatever it is, a multitude of factors. Again, what's your cycle, what you're exposed to, you get enough sleep, were you exposed to some kind of chemtrail or some kind of fragrance? It's just how many variables are there, and so you think, oh, this doesn't work, or I did something wrong, or no, it's just something that happens to every people. I mean, you might have been bitten by a spider, and you're doing well, right? And damn it, what the hell? And you can't predict it.
Happened to me, so I get
Yeah.
that. Um, it could be a perfect storm of many things, right? Maybe you've been doing MM for many, many years, and um, maybe you've only been doing a short time. You didn't say, Monica, how long you've been doing it. So if you've only been doing it for like 6 months to a year, you've got some support and some turning around, but maybe you've been doing it for 6 years. But what's been going on in the backdrop of your life is that maybe there's some stress, maybe days you didn't sleep well, maybe you got exposed to something from another person, maybe you had an exposure to a certain chemical that weakened your immune system in the moment. And what if all of those things happened in the same couple of weeks or a month? And then you're left, and then maybe you have a cycle. I don't know if you're menopausal or not, but maybe you're coming up on a cycle, and you throw that into the perfect storm. And then
There's a nice story. I think Anthony on a podcast, was it? He was talking about how he was flying or something like this, and all of a sudden he felt this in his throat. And SOC is like, hey, that's you. You're getting sick. Okay, we're talking about Anthony William, the medical medium, the guy who wrote these 9 books, right? And he's gonna get a viral infection because he's pushing himself to travel. He's writing these books. He's staying up at night. If he can have succumbed to that, what can happen to us?
yeah, yeah, exactly. So we are definitely compromised in so many ways and deal with these compromised situations all the time. So, you know, just don't worry about why, that I feel like I'm living by the book. And just because you're living by the book, it doesn't mean you're never going to get sick. You're going to get sick. The world is designed for us to get sick. There's pathogens everywhere. There are exposures everywhere. There's trails from the skies. And in those is strontium, barium, aluminium, like, some of the worst uh, brain chemicals that exist on in the universe. Fluoride in our waters, GMO foods in our food supply that we've maybe eaten when we were younger. If you're eating meat or animal protein, you're definitely getting exposure to the GMOs. You're definitely getting exposure to certain medical treatments if you're eating animals, right? Most people don't think of that. Like, if you really
Right.
want to avoid and be clean, there's so many other levels and ways that you can go to be clean. So, and you take decades and decades of history of doing this and not really knowing or being aware, and we eat because we just don't know any better. So we expose a lot. There's a lot that our bodies are carrying. So I think that matters. All right. So another question is from layers of healing. Can Epstein-Barr be eliminated from the body 100%, or can it only be knocked down or become less intense?
I don't believe that you can take it out 100%. I believe that it's a chronic thing. It's like, forgive the French, but you have to make it your bitch kind of. I mean, like you have to subdue it to the point where it can't do as much. In fact, Epstein-Barr virus, you want to keep it there as a placeholder so that other ones don't establish king of the hill, right? There's different varieties of Epstein-Barr, as we've talked about, and some will want to take over if one gets knocked out. So you want to keep the one that you can manage as a placeholder, so other ones don't come in and take it. It's kind of like yeast and candida, right? Candida is there as taking up resources so that strep and other bacteria can't take those resources and stuff. And you
Right.
think is an issue. So yeah, I would say no.
Yeah, Anthony has said it in one of his earlier radio shows. He says you cannot kill the herpetic viruses. You can kill strep, but you cannot kill the herpetic viruses. You can make them go dormant. So basically, you can make them inactive, which is really helpful to know. Another question is trying to transition to an advanced 369 fully raw is too detoxing. Can I add 2 potatoes until I find a balance or stay on the original?
Oh, I guess you can experiment, but you might again. Comes to are you getting enough calories? Are you eating enough apples in your cleanses and stuff to get the calories? Because you may be like, well, I'm eating all the right foods and I'm doing it the right ones, but you're not eating enough volume to get enough calories. So I would play with it a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I would say if you want to do it that way, Tracy, and bring in a couple of potatoes at night to help you transition, I think that's fine. I think you're still going to get a lot of benefit from it. So you can go ahead and do that if that's something that's easier for you to manage. Okay, our next question is from Kuski ID. What's the P65 warning on some supplements? Should one stay away from them? So the P65 warning is from government of California, and they put it in as a cancer warning or a heavy metal warning. I can't remember which one it is. Do you remember which one it is, Dr.
There's all sorts of ones, and they kind of go overboard for some things.
Yeah,
And in fact, some of the products that Anthony recommends in the past, even now,
even like
they're
that dose, right?
yeah, adults, for instance, yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like really, I mean, it's nice to have that, but some of it's too much, and it's kind of being kind of paranoid about things. Um, I think we have this whole problem with arsenic and all these different things in the Vimergy products, and it's like, well, how much is organic, how much is inorganic, how much it gets to your system? Because if you were to look at some other products, you would also. But I think some of those products are also grandfathered in, where they don't even do P65 on things that have been going for years now. So you don't even know how much bad stuff is in that stuff, because they haven't tested it, it's been grandfathered in. So I would not be worried about them. I don't think they're reliable.
Yeah,
Basically.
yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Um, I think you just have to use your common sense and be careful. A lot of supplements basically are just crap. So if there's a warning on crappy supplements, I wouldn't take them anyway. It just depends on if it's a really high quality supplement and you see that, then you should think about it critically, as Dr. Phan just explained. So our next question is a bigger question. It's from Marilee Waldron, and she says, I have uterine fibroids and thick visible veins in my uterus, plus hemochromatosis that might want to take the fibroids out, but my pain got a lot better with doing the 28-day cleanse. How come the raw helps so much? If I am raw too long, my neurological symptoms, it cut off. Yeah, it cut off. So what do we, oh, wait, there's more here in the actual thing. My neurological symptoms go crazy. What else can I do? Especially for thick veins, uterus and blood off, all fat, off grains, off any of the no troublemaker foods. Have adrenal problems on Core 7, plus some other supplements on nettle, on BS, on the Bs, so vitamin B, maybe 5-MTHF, on MSM, silica, and also on iodine. Very sensitive to licorice, makes me anxious and shaky.
I am very sensitive to BS. No, I'm joking. Yeah, another question is, are you having these neurological symptoms because is it because you're getting enough calories or not, right? Because initially, even on the cleanses, you can adrenalize yourself and feel good, like, wow, I feel good, but you might be not getting enough adequate calories. Um, so what else can you do? I mean, definitely this will take a long time. Hemochromatosis, they say it's genetic, but in reality, it's a resting bar, and it's accumulation of iron in the body and deposition in different organs, particularly the liver and other places and stuff. So you continue to cleanse. All these fibroids is Epstein-Barr and strep and stuff, perhaps, depending on the size and shape of the fibroids. But
So, I mean, what you're saying, right, is
Mhm.
what she asked why she's better all raw. Raw food allows your body to cleanse better. It provides nutrients to it in a form that's very recognizable and easily assimilable. Um, that's why raw helps some people. Some people struggle with it because they have sensitive gut nerves, and um, they struggle with their gut and liver so much, so it's hard for them to do the raw, even though raw is easier to digest. Some people wouldn't see it that way because they struggle, but
Very
um,
hydrating too.
very hydrating, deeply hydrating, corrects mineral deficiencies quickly, corrects glucose deficiencies quickly. So that's probably why it helped. And you said that if I'm raw too long, my neurosymptoms go crazy. And I'm wondering whether you could go raw and provide yourself a supportive supplement routine. I know you mentioned some, but maybe I don't know what you mean by go crazy. Like, do you get one of the reasons on a raw food diet where you might have symptoms flaring is that you're not eating enough calories. It's a very common mistake that many of us don't even realize that we're making. So you've got to make sure that you're eating enough calories. It happens to me too. You go raw and you start eating less and less over time, and you have to be so mindful to make sure you're including like a bowl of fruit every now and then, a big smoothie with fruit in it, and keeping up with the calories. Like if you tried to calculate how many potatoes you eat when you're not eating raw and the calories that come from that to match that in a raw food diet, you have to eat a shit ton more.
Like
I'm not
you can't fit in your stomach because it's so much.
It's so much, it's really a lot. So that's why the smoothies are really helpful because it blends everything in a smaller, concentrated, container, and you can just use
Volume.
that, and you'll get so much more in. So it takes some adjustment, but I hope that that gave you some insight. Another question we have is from Jay, and Jay says, "Can you talk about abdominal aortic aneurysm and the most important things to do? My dad just had life-saving surgery and a stent. He does a lot. He does not. You said he does a lot of MM, but maybe, and you put a sad face, so maybe you mean he doesn't do a lot of MM. What do you think, Dr. Fan?
Okay, if he does a lot of MM, you still got to do more. If he doesn't do MM, then you can't. You can't. You have to ask him, hey, look, are you going to be able to get off animal? Because when you have coronary artery disease or any kind of atherosclerosis, you really want to get off the plant product. I mean, the animal products. Animal products, basically, because that atherosclerosis is a result of these years and years of stuff. I don't know if he was a smoker, probably. Usually AAAs or had a history of smoking, and of course, long-term sluggish liver and animal products in the system. So you shift them over, bring him celery juice, do the morning cleanse. Even if he doesn't go 100% animal, maybe you have to kind of transition him to more plant-based and stuff like this. And that'll perhaps stabilize the plaques because you got to control that blood pressure. You don't want a high pressure in this aneurysm which weaken and burst and stuff like this. So do what you can for MM, and if he's already doing it, do more. I mean, that's the next step.
Yeah, I agree. You've got to really focus on thinning the blood. An aneurysm is so many things have to come together for that condition to be created in the body. So many things have to go wrong for that to happen. So um, you really have to work on thinning the blood, getting the glucose in, getting the mineral salts in, getting in, lowering animal proteins, lowering fats, and doing a drastic change in the diet. So clearly something that he did all his life got him there. So I'm glad that he's safe. I'm glad he had life-saving surgery. And now to protect the stent and to make sure that it doesn't build up all over again, The diet is your main thing, right? I mean, you might think, oh gosh, what supplements can you take? Of course, if you took supplements, I can make a case for anyone to have any supplement, right? But what's the most important thing for him would be to change his diet and to do that consistently over time. Um, Two comments on the radiation discussion we had. One is from Barb Adler, and she says, how dangerous is secondary radiation? I drove my dad to all of his radiation treatments several years ago.
I mean, it's a significant thing, but what can you do about it now? Now you detox. You can do a bunch of radiation tea. You can do the rain shots, and you bring in a lot of antioxidants, which I'm assuming you're doing now. So it's let's not adrenalize yourself about that because it's kind of past tense, and you haven't developed something that we know of. Hopefully, so you're taking action now by doing medical medium protocols, which may be in itself enough.
And another comment about radiation. My mother
Yeah,
had
yeah.
radiation, and the doctor said that radiation is a gift that keeps on giving. He said every year a person has 5% chance more of getting cancer.
What we don't know is how does this radiation interact with the stuff that we're inundated with, the Wi-Fi, EMF, all these different things. We don't know. I don't know if they've actually had a study. I'm sure there's somebody out there trying to study this, but regardless, you still do the things to protect us, to protect yourself. And it is a guarantee. No, there's no bulletproof vest that you can wear that will do that. So you just have to continue to do the protocols as best as you can.
Yeah. Um, Elaine says, Dr. Phan, I recently had a sphincterectomy. Did I say that right? Um,
Sphincterotomy.
sphincterotomy for SOD. I'm still having pain. Any suggestions?
So here's the trouble: is a lot of these abbreviations, they can mean different things, right? What does SOD mean? Like spirit of dispatch, or it means sphincter of OD dysfunction is what I'm assuming because this is in reference to sphincterotomy. So what caused the sphincter to close off in the first place? Probably a viral thing, probably sluggish liver. You're still doing cleanse, great. Continue doing that. You want to help the nerves out because why did the sphincter? A sphincter is innervated by nerve, like the close and open close, right? So you really want to bring in the antiviral components in the B12 because something is signaling that sphincter to close off, or cause a malfunction, let's say, right?
Yeah, I mean, for pain, if you're still in pain, I don't know if you're taking any supplements to support you with that, but Cal Poppy, California Poppy, Nettle Leaf, Magnesium Glycinate,
Mm.
Neuromag, Lemon Balm are all helpful for pain. And
Can you do
curcumin,
a heating pad? A heating pad might relax the
yeah,
spasm or whatever it is as well. Try it. It may not work, but just try.
yeah, I agree. It's definitely worth trying. We have some interesting questions that were posted in the chat box on Instagram. How do you get rid of pandemic medical treatments from our bodies?
You read the brain saver protocols and you do those protocols. So you do the pharmaceutical exposure shot.
Yeah, pharmaceutical exposure shot. I would say the you want to do the advanced. What is it called? The high powered heavy metal cleanse. The high powered cleanse. It's the
Yeah.
most advanced heavy metal cleanse that exists. Um, you'd want to do the advanced heavy metal detox smoothie, the advanced extractor smoothie, the 3 apples a day, lots of raw, and include brain shots like the pharmaceutical exposure shot, but also the radiation exposure shot and the toxic heavy metal exposure shots. I would do a whole combination of those in order to help yourself here. Um, what are the top foods and supplements for healing hemorrhoids?
Top foods and supplements. Right? Well, basically, cleansing the liver because the hemorrhoids are a result of sluggish, backup of the liver, right? You can bring in. You're doing the celery juice. You're doing maybe papaya if you haven't done that. You're doing some dragon fruit. All these different cleanse smoothies that are helpful. Um, whatever else you can do to cleanse the liver, basically. I don't know.
Papayas, aloe are really good for hemorrhoids, but aloe in particular, aloe shock therapy
Mm.
can just reverse a hemorrhoid. So I love the simplicity of that and can be very helpful to people. So I hope you'll use that. Um, what can we do for kidney stone without using pharmaceuticals?
Yeah, you gotta hydrate yourself the heck a lot. Reduce your animal protein. There are a bunch of foods. If you Google kidney stones medical medium and you do images, you've got all these different fruits that are good to flush the kidneys. All right, cranberry juice, um, cranberry water. I'm sorry, cranberry water. The recipe that he has, very good to flush the kidneys. But you got to hydrate so much, and this is a result of the backup and stuff like this.
No, there's a lot that you can do for kidney stones. I mean, I don't know if you've read Life Changing Foods. He talks about, again, the asparagus that I mentioned earlier is really helpful against kidney stones as well. Include and also cherries are great. Dr. Fan mentioned cranberries, grapes, limes and lemons extra, mangoes, oranges, tangerines are amazing for this, and um, pomegranates. If you can get pomegranate juice, it's so helpful for kidney stones. It's summer, so pomegranates in the summertime are not um, in season. But Pitaya Foods has a new product called frozen pomegranate cubes of juice. So helpful if you need it for this situation.
I mean, the fresh one is just so tastes amazing. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
you can juice it
really
amazing.
exactly. Also, artichokes are amazing for kidney stones. He actually says to eat artichokes with romaine lettuce. And together, he says they help to dissolve both gallstones and kidney stones. So there's so many solutions. Like if you just look in the books. And you asked also a question: can celery juice contribute to kidney stones? Dr. Fan, what would you say to that?
No, if you have kidney stones that are exacerbated by celery juice, it's moving those cells. It's dissolving the kidney stones, and it starts to move because it's instead of being bigger and stuck in one place, now it starts to dissolve and starts to move. So I've had many patients like, it gave me kidney stones. Like, sir, have you ever had kidney stones before celery juice? Yes. Like, well, there you go. You had kidney stones, and it starts moving it out, and it hurts like hell, and you want to blame the celery juice.
Right, exactly. Um, related to the question on radiation, since we've been talking about radiation so much today, what helps radiation damage to connective tissue or fascia from cancer treatments?
I mean, buttloads of antioxidants in the foods and supplements. Basically, are you taking melatonin and things like this too? Maybe you know, quick. That's my quick answer.
Yeah, also radiation exposure shot, anti-radiation tea from the revised and expanded medical medium book. All of those tools can be helpful. Aloe is really helpful for radiation. Spirulina is really helpful. Dulcinea really helpful. There's just a lot of tools that you can bring in to help. Apples are really helpful for radiation too. So I hope you'll use those tools and help yourself get better. Um, Another question that we have is I think we've handled so many questions today. Good job to us. All right. So,
Yeah.
Busy Lizzie says, and I was saving this question for you. So, where to start with my 15-year-old niece who has mild autism with awful depression and anxiety?
Heavy metal detox smoothie. If you can't do that, do a few of the ingredients. If you can't do that, bring in fruit. If you can't do that, uh, give her some lemon water. I mean, there's so many. You have to be creative. And can she do B12? Can she do the supplements and stuff like this? She needs that stuff. Um, gosh, I mean, there's so much you can do. The question is, what will she do? You know her better than obviously we do, right? If you want to make some pops that are fruit based, or I mean, sorry, the heavy metal detox smoothie in a popsicle form. What is her texture tolerance and stuff like this, right? Cutting out the no foods. I mean, there are a lot of things you can do.
Yeah, a lot of things you can do, but also if she's got severe anxiety, I would start giving her lemon balm and see how she responds to that. And if she responds well, then do lemon balm shock therapy for her, right? So give her a tool that she can use that will calm her down, in addition to doing what Dr. Phan suggested. And just,
Nature therapy. She likes puzzles. Let's
yeah,
bring her out and if you can.
yeah, I mean, Dr. Phan, you know what I did today?
What you do?
I went to go check out equine therapy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it was amazing. And I'm doing it for myself. And this particular place I'm going to, they work with a lot of autistic children. And one the woman there was telling me that she's been working with this one autistic kid for like a year or 2 years, and of course the parents are doing a lot of other things too, but this kid went from being nonverbal to becoming verbal, which she was just in tears explaining this story to me and
Yeah.
saying that horses really have just so much healing potential and power because they can feel every human emotion. And I've actually heard this before. I think horses are highly, highly intuitive around people. And yeah, I mean, it was really, really cool to hear that. Kind of fun, you know.
Horsing around can bring a lot of benefits.
Horsing around. That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm horsing around. Um, all right, so we'll take our final question. And this is about the gallbladder. And she says, Blondie says, do you have any information about the gallbladder, specifically a functional disorder of the gallbladder that affects its ability to move bile into the bile ducts?
Celery juice cleanse up that liver, reduce the fats and the oils. There's
Yeah.
so many tests you can do that doctors will like, well, we're not sure. We think we should just cut out your gallbladder. And that doesn't always fix the problem because the actual mechanism of injury or problem is still there. You're still eating a certain way or you're still having a lot of stress. Even if you're like perfect, not eating overt fat and you're doing adrenal snacking and you're doing the supplements and your adrenal and cortisol levels are just through the roof, that can make the liver sluggish, right? But you don't think about it because it's your everyday life. Every day you're just, yeah, I know my life's like that. So it can actually make the liver really sluggish and affect the gallbladder in that regard, right? Of course, there's also viruses and pathogens that can screw the gallbladder up too. So food poisoning, very commonplace to screw your gallbladder up, right? But these tests are not going to be inclusive. Like, you can do a HIDA scan, you can do a CAT scan, you ultrasound, you can do all these different things. And at the end of the day, it's what's the preference of the treating physician, whether they want to cut it out or do something else as far as, medication or medication for spasms, like they give you dicyclomine or whatever it is.
Also, in the Liver Rescue book, there's a whole section on gallbladder issues. So, if you have not got the Liver Rescue book, I highly suggest that you get it. Don't just read the gallbladder section because the gallbladder gets affected by the sludge that comes out of the liver. The liver is hot. As the sludge comes out of the liver, it goes into the gallbladder, it cools down. That's one of the ways that stones can form. And he says everyone has stones in their gallbladder. And and when you have more stones and more thick and sluggish fluids or junk, it's hard to move bile, right? So the condition is liver, it's viral, it's a whole bunch of things. So cleaning up the diet for gallbladder is your number one thing, unless you have a gallbladder infection, in which case lots of amazing supplements can also make a difference quickly. But um, but that's a more acute case. This is a more chronic condition. And for this chronic condition, the foods are the biggest difference for the gallbladder.
She said she's allergic to celery here, and that could be temporary. You may eventually heal yourself where you can tolerate celery, but if you're not, so your cucumber juice, right? You can do some cleanses that, I mean, Muneeza helped herself without a lot of celery juice, and when Anthony was first consulting with you, is what I understand.
Yeah. I mean, you can start small with celery juice. You won't, basically, Anthony has said on his um, radio show on allergies, he says that you cannot have a true allergy to a natural food like celery. So it's more like a sensitivity or an intolerance, but not a true allergy. So in that case, because it's not a true allergy, you can start by doing a teaspoon of celery juice every day for a while. You should be okay on that. And then you increase it a little bit and you do maybe 2 teaspoons, right? After a month or so. And then maybe you do 3 teaspoons. And like I mentioned earlier, you build it up slowly. and you'll notice that you won't have an allergy anymore, and it should clear up, and you should feel a heck of a lot better.
Yeah, and it's not anaphylaxis where you can't breathe and you're going to die. You need EpiPen. That's something totally different.
Well, I mean, thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Phan, for hanging out with us today. Um, it's been a great live and a great call today. Lots of amazing questions were answered. Sorry, my eyes are darting everywhere because I'm watching the chat. I'm looking at the comments on Instagram and trying to make sure I've kept up with answering people's questions. We've done a lot of amazing in-depth Q&A. Let us know in the chat box. You want to see this show regularly? The Dr. Phan Muneeza show? If you do, let us know, and tell your friends to come watch us and join in the conversation.
Like, subscribe, or the bell, or whatever. Hit them all.
Hit them all. Like, subscribe, share. Put the notifications on. We're really here to help you. We really care about people who are struggling and sick, and please encourage others to come and watch along with us so we have like a one big party. And hopefully, Dr. Phan, next time you got to bring more jokes. It's
the end of the day. My jokes are depleted. I need to.
All right. Thank you all for watching from our heart to yours.